When are your peak programming hours? When is it that you like to program the most?
I like to do it at night, but recently that hasn't been happening because of all the craziness that we've been doing around here. So I've been toasted, after 10 o'clock. It's like my brain doesn't work. But typically it's like put the kids to bed, 10 o'clock till 1 a.m. That's when I really like to get cranking. But yeah, I don't think that's going to be going until we finish up here.
Nice. You got any construction supplies delivered other than the tiles yet?
Just the tile.
Just the tiles.
So, and a bunch of packing boxes that we've started packing up the library. Right, start the important stuff first, the library.
So those of you who aren't regulars around here, Richie has to basically replace pretty much everything in his house. I think the roof is good, but everything
The roof
else
was
is...
great because we just did that about 8 years ago. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was an Andrew roof, actually. It's a post-Andrew roof, and they all started like going bad about the same time because the roof will typically last you about 20 years. So you see all these new roofs now in my neighborhood because all the roofs started going bad at once because everyone got it replaced after Andrew because no one had roofs left. So.
Wow. Man.
Yeah, and now all the pipes, the underground pipes are failing because they're cast iron, at least in my neighborhood, and I'm like the sixth house on our block, a block of 10, to get the pipes replaced. So you see everybody, in the last 2 years, or half the block in the last 2 years, have had the pods out front and, out of the house for, 6 months or, 4 or 6 months. It's just, yep.
Terrible bad. Yeah, well, nothing too exciting to report over here. We're doing mastering index tuning this week, so I keep looking over at the classes turning in their homework, and they're working on filtered indexes, indexed views, and computed columns right now in their labs.
Three of my favorite things.
Are they?
Well, as far as things on SQL Server goes, they're three of my favorite things.
What's your favorite feature in SQL Server?
Oh, God. Cross-apply.
Cross-apply? Okay,
yeah,
that's fair.
That has helped me the most when it comes to fixing stuff. I think cross-apply has come in handy more times than almost anything else.
At the very
window
mention
functions.
of cross-apply, Tara just vaporizes.
Nah, I'm out.
So Richie says windowing functions. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you need it, you really need it, and you're glad it's there.
Mm-hmm. And I have to Google the
Otherwise,
syntax
you're doing
for
a whole bunch of funky stuff in code trying to bubble up numbers and things like that, getting running totals and all the other crazy stuff. So
it's true. That's one of the probably weakest areas for me. I suck at windowing functions. I got to get better at that. Tara, what's your favorite feature in SQL Server?
So your 3 webcams froze for me, so I thought I had an internet issue, so that's why I dropped off the webcam real quick and went on mute. So I can still hear you. So I don't know what's going on, but your 3 froze, so it's got to be me. So, I mean, it's not going to come as any surprise, but my favorite feature, of course, is availability groups. It solved so many issues that I had,
Yeah.
HADR reporting, woohoo!
When I came out, I was just like, this is just amazing. It was just the coolest. Whoa.
It made my life a lot better with one of my applications.
Yeah. I'd have to pick the stuff around memory grants. I'm still just so amazed by memory grants, how memory grants work, how SQL Server guesses how big they're going to be, what happens when they're too big. That's just so cool. So, plus I got to come up with a better way of visualizing for people, like here's how big your memory is, here's how much is used for caching data, here's how much is being used to, go to this query workspace. That's just such a cool topic.
I'd like more detail on the memory grant information, why, give us a breakdown on what's going on so I don't have to do, so much homework to figure it out.
Yeah, like to just show by operator, how much each operator needs and, how much it's billed. That would be just so cool.
Well, I mean, you always want to look at memory fractions and think that
always
it's gonna, help
I was going to say that.
Yeah, well, I do. I always want to look at memory fractions and
I don't even know what that is, Eric. I mean, seriously.
It's a plan operator thing. You hit F4, it's right there. But it tells you how much memory an operator got and how much it passed on to get used downstream. And it's just always wonky and wrong and not helpful. But you always want it to be I always have this hope that today this will help me. It never does. Every time I'm let down by it. It's like the worst stat in the world.
I just wanted to tell me, is it due to an order by? Is it due to varchar max? Just give me some kind of hint so I don't have to I don't have to spend much time digging.
You mean that's not automated for you? It's not.
What?
The robots don't just do that? It's weird.
Golly. Let's try. Let's throw together a little query and then order by display name plus location. Sure. Let's see if that works. So if I look at the execution plan, and the first time I pull up a plan, it's all slow. So if I right-click on here, implicit conversion. No, that has nothing to do with the cardinality estimate. Properties. If you go over into memory grants, so this is the stuff that we usually look at over here, but then you can also get memory grant fractions on individual operators. And I'm trying to remember how this works with inputs and outputs. It's something like it was supposed to be the percentage of how much of the memory is dedicated to coming in versus how much of it is saved for the output operators, or for the output side of the operator.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll get another one on the sort because he needs a memory fraction. Does it mean anything? No, not no. It would be so cool if it did.
Nothing you can impact in any way, really.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you could, unless you totally redo indexes, rewrite the query in a way, or rewrite the query in different ways. But generally looking at memory fractions, just helps with nothing. It's like certain things you just can't split up. And you're like, oh, all right, well, something inside of SQL Server died and gave. You left all its money to this hash match grant and cat.
And does it mean anything if one is higher than the other? Or, no, nothing.
Nothing decipherable anyway.
It's all French to me. Someday I'm going to have to learn that because I want to know it. But
just give me an actual number. How much memory did this thing get? Don't give me that percent in, percent out. Just give me the number.
That add up to more than 100%.
Yeah, I mean.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
15,000%.
All right, we'll start knocking through your technical questions. And there's only a couple in there, so folks, feel free to get your technical questions in. We go through first come, first serve, and when we run out, we bail. We go out and off we go.
We could talk about our failure that we had in the cloud the other day, which was funny.
We'll come back to that. There was one with the sizing issue, too, was the other. David asks, is it better to do an update stats before I do index maintenance or after, and why?
It's a trick question.
I know, for real.
Do you still beat your father? No, wait, yes, no.
I think so. At what? Chess? No, so, David, around these parts, we're not too keen on doing index maintenance like your indexes owe you money. It's not really the right way to do things. All the sort of time and effort that you expend figuring out if an index is fragmented and then doing actual work on it is kind of a lot of wasted effort from our point of view, and it doesn't really fix the kind of performance problems that you want to fix. Updating stats is a really good thing to do. I'm a fan of that. I enjoy the stats update because it does the two best parts of an index rebuild without all the crazy work involved. It updates statistics on your indexes, and it invalidates old or perhaps potentially bad plans in the cache. So a really smart guy named Michael Swart once commented on one of our blog posts that index rebuilds are the most expensive statistics update in the world. So I would tend to run with that advice a little bit and say that you should not just blindly keep running index maintenance, but keep on updating those stats.
And then to answer the question, though, I mean, if you are doing index maintenance, do your update stats after and make sure it's intelligent enough to not bother updating stats on an index that just got rebuilt, because you already got updated statistics if you had an index rebuild. So I normally recommend to my clients update stats daily and then index maintenance much less frequently. Some of them are really, they don't want to make big changes, so I'll say, okay, weekly then for your index maintenance. But I really want to tell them monthly, quarterly, every once in a while maybe, it's update stats that matters.
Let's see. Michael asks, hi, Team Ozar. What are your thoughts on Microsoft's acquisition of GitHub? Oh, we should go through
good question for
one by
Richie.
one. Yeah, Richie, what do you feel about it?
I'd take the money. I'd take much less.
7.5
Sounds like a good deal
billion.
for GitHub. Microsoft is different than it was 10 years ago. It's different than it was in the Ballmer era. It's different than it was in the Gates era. They're much more open to open source. If you didn't know, Microsoft is the #1 contributor to Linux. I mean, who figured that? So I think it's a good deal for GitHub. I think it's a good deal for Microsoft. From what I've read, they said they're not going to really do much to anything to GitHub, but if you take a look at any of their dev presentations for the last 3 years, they're all using GitHub anyway, unless they're specifically showing something that from the guys out in, was it Charlotte, South Carolina, but that's where the Visual Studio team services team is. Unless they're showing something like that, it's all using GitHub stuff, and all the Microsoft stuff, even Microsoft Docs, is now over on GitHub. So it just made sense that they have all this money and might as well put it into a system that they use, they love, and hopefully they'll continue to have it grow and more focused on the hub part as opposed to the Git. So I like it.
And we use it ourselves, and we won't change off of it. If anything, I get more excited about it because we're Microsoft people. We do all kinds of stuff on the Microsoft stack. So anything.
This is we people. I mean, we don't all use GitHub.
yeah. Hey, Microsoft person. What computer do you use again? I forget.
Oh yes, an Apple. Yes. Somebody was like, "Yeah, are you gonna?" They were telling me, "Are you gonna leave all your stuff off of GitHub? Because you're one of those open source people." I'm like, "I use an Apple. I make a living with SQL Server. I really don't care whether my stuff is open source or not. I mean, we give out open source stuff, but like the things that we build aren't open source. Our SQL Constant Care is closed source. We had a discussion about that when we first started too. Like, hey, it's the plan. Should it be open source or not? And then SQL Constant Care, should it be open source or not?"
I mean, I think we're a perfect example of how Microsoft has changed. Back 10, 15 years ago, I was 100% Microsoft stuff. I didn't use anything else other than that. And now I'm using AWS, I'm using other database tools, I'm using NoSQL tools, I'm still using .NET, I'm still using all the Microsoft IDEs, I use Visual Studio Code, but there's all this other stuff that has come into my development environment, and they're great. Microsoft stuff is still great. We still use SQL Server. Obviously, we're SQL Server shop, but there's other stuff that's great too. And I think that Microsoft just kind of have embraced that as well. Say, hey, we make good stuff. Other people make good stuff. We could leverage this stuff in our product and purchase other stuff like GitHub, and hopefully not make it suck. Hopefully, it's better than the purchase of Skype. Yeah.
The one thing everybody immediately goes to. And LinkedIn seems to have set a good precedence. I don't use LinkedIn. I use it with one of those things where I just go, okay, I'll accept a bunch of connections. My general filter on LinkedIn is, do you have a picture? Because if you don't care enough to have a picture, then I'm not even going to bother connecting. And it's not like I look at what you look like. I just see, is there a picture or not? And then second, does it say recruiter? Because I'm not touching a recruiter. But as long as they have a picture and they're not a recruiter, I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Car dealer, yeah, sure, whatever. Professional photographer, whatever. Tishal asks, is it possible to create a linked server between two SQL Server instances in different domains? I want to move tables from one instance to another, but they're in different domains.
Oh boy. Why are you using linked servers to do this job? I mean, this is not a job for a linked server. Use SSIS, use the import-export wizard. I mean, use other features. Yes, you can do it via linked server, but it is not a great feature as far as moving data around between two servers. And it's really easy to use to set up a linked server to use SQL authentication, but there's security concerns there. It's just not the right tool. Use the right tool for the job.
Tara, I noticed that you didn't say replication.
Well, I'm assuming this is like a one-time move, I mean, if it's moving data, all the time, then and if you can't use availability groups, then I'm going to go say, okay, replication.
Availability groups.
No, SSIS. I mean, this sounds like an SSIS problem. I mean, you're not going to, if you need to move a planet, you use Superman, right? But if you need to go and kill a crime lord, you use Batman, right? So this seems like an SSIS problem.
Yes. I like it.
That's pretty good. Corey says, sites like Stack Overflow scale by using tools like Elasticsearch and Redis to offload requests from their expensive database server. I work in a company that has SQL Server, but we don't have any of those tools to offload requests. Developers complain about slow performance. Assuming I'm the greatest DBA, I like that. That's a good example.
You are.
Yeah,
you absolutely are.
Smell great today. Yeah. And my server is tuned to the max. What's the conversation I can have with developers to say that I've tuned everything I could and maybe the application needs to take a different approach?
And I'd be looking at Blitz cache output and look at the XPM sort order, the transactions per minute, and seeing what's in there. I bet you're running queries a lot that they don't need to be running a lot. You could be caching the data.
I'll fire it open to show you. So if we open up SP Blitz Cache is a tool that originally was written by Jeremiah Peshka and is these days managed by our good friend here, Erik Darling, because it has XQuery in it, and the rest, that's like kryptonite to the rest of us. We're like, yeah, no, sorry, unsubscribe. Blitz Cache sort order equals XPM, stands for executions per minute. This will show you the queries that are running the most often on your SQL Server. And of course mine, there's going to be nothing in here because I just started up and IntelliSense started running. But if you scroll across just a little, there'll be an executions per minute column. Might as well throw in a select from the users, have it run a few times, select count star from DBO users. Actually, you know what I'll do even if I want high XPM, select top 1 star from DBO users, go 1,000, 10,000, whatever. And then as the thing starts to run more often, it'll float up to the top of SP Blitz Cache. So, and of course it's not going to happen yet because we haven't had a minute pass by. But you can also do, in cases like this, check out SP Blitz Cache sort order equals executions.
That's one I don't use ever with my clients. I mean, I see it in our, our Excel file, but I just don't use that one.
Yeah, it's so here he goes. There's our select top 1 star from users, and then it shows you the query is run X number of times. Yeah, that's good. What else would we tell him if he's going, he's a developer, he wants to tell his developers to look at the application code?
You need to point out the queries that are going bad. I mean, the developers don't know. I mean, we don't. Yeah. I mean, and if we go up against our development or tests, everything is fast, and then when it goes to production, everything is slow. So you need to be the one going into the queries and seeing, hey, do I need an index here? Do I need this there? What if this query needs to be rejiggered, rechanged because we're using recursive, whatever, and blah, blah, blah. That needs to be you, dog. I mean, you're the best DBA in the world, and now you need to prove it. So, yeah, you need to go into it. You need to take a look at all the queries, and you need to say, well, this query is slow, this query is slow. Even if we shave a half second off this because it's running so frequently, then we'll be saving X amount of time, and the system will be that much faster. So, yeah, you need to dig into that, bro.
Well, the other thing is that, when developers complain that something is slow, you need to figure out, A, what they feel slow is. Like, you need to set some basic guidelines, like okay, what's slow? Like 100 milliseconds, half a second, 1 second, 2 seconds, and then show me what's slow to you. Like physically run something in the application that you feel doesn't happen fast enough, then let's try to repro that on the SQL Server itself. Because if you run that query on the SQL Server and it's not slow, then it's slow in the application and fast in SSMS, and you might have a totally different set of problems.
Let's see, next up, Michael asks, if you have TempDB contention that isn't, oh, you know what, then there's one thing I should say too about the last question. So, and God bless him, Corey, you probably are the best DBA in the world, but for the folks who are reading this later or, watching the YouTube video, whatever, be really careful about pointing the finger somewhere. Like very often when I was like, as a database administrator, I'm like, man, it's your application sucks. And they're like, well, we just hired in an outsider, and they found out that it turns out we have no indexes in our tables. What? Wait, what? I totally hosed up the storage.
Brent, bad guy Ozar.
Brent, idiot Ozar, too. Michael says, if you have TempDB contention that isn't related to PFS, SGAM, or PFS, GAM, or SGAM pages, is it still wise to increase the number of files and set the So basically what he's asking is, should I set the number of TempDB files that I have and use that trace flag 1118?
I like to go, as soon as I install SQL Server, I go to best practices, and that's just how I configure it. And Microsoft does recommend trace flags 1117 and 1118, so I'm just going to apply those and, increase number of files up to 8, depending upon number, of course. So right off the bat, I'm just going to best practices, and then I might change things later on depending upon what I see.
Yeah, those things became the default in the SQL Server 2016 installer. Like creating one TempDB data file per core up to 8 cores, and trace flags 1117, 1118, and a whole host of other ones just became default behavior because they were just such no-brainers to turn on modern SQL servers with any kind of workload on them. There's really no reason not to have them. I would be interested to see you turn those on, come back next week, and tell us if you're still having the same problems. Because if you're still having the same problems after that, then it's a completely different discussion about what the hell are you doing in TempDB, my friend? 40 concurrent sessions with 4 billion row tables, 10 tables getting created. Then I don't think all the trace flags in the world are going to help.
No files. Files aren't going to help you. Let's see. Next up, Joshua says, why does Brent always have to do such awful things to databases, a la today's post? So I will show you guys today's post because it's awesome.
So you don't have to.
So yes, so you learn them and you can take them to work. I loved this particular thing. I wanted to write a select where everything was keywords. So select, from, where, like. And that's valid and that compiles. That's kind of cool. You can put spaces in a query, like you can break this up, a query across spaces. You can break them across lines. But this one is the one that I really find delightful. This is so gorgeous. And it's only a picture on the WordPress page. I'm going to go get it from GitHub because it's really nice when you copy paste it into SSMS and it looks like it shouldn't even work. I'm going to go paste it in here. Oops. Oh, this tab is hosed because of this go 10,000 times thing. I didn't think it was going to take me seriously. I thought it would error out after, when I said go 10,000 because I thought there was a max. SSMS is locked up tighter than SSMS.
Fort Knox.
Really bad.
Fort Knox.
Fort Knox is good. Golly. Yeah, for it's SSMS, and which means we're probably going to lose PowerPoint here in a while too as well, but it is what it is. Next we have Pablo. Pablo says, I want to buy myself some cloud for my SQL Server lab environments. What would you recommend? Oh.
Credit card with no limit.
Richie, for the record, ours has a limit.
You just can't see the limit from here. It's a supposed limit. It's
I don't know. Without even trying, I'm trying, right? So there you go.
Brent's cards have a theoretical limit. You just can't see them with normal physics, but they're out there.
I've always wanted to, at some point in my life, buy a car and just put the whole thing on a credit card, watch it and go, hey, watch this, see what happens. See, how big of a car? Can I try that one over there? Can you see that authorized?
Can I return this one? Get that.
Yeah. Yes. If I don't sign it with my regular signature, can I dispute that charge? Now, when you guys work with cloud stuff, because we've had the opportunity to work with Azure, we've worked with Google, we've worked with Amazon, we've jumped around between back and forth. If you were going to tell somebody to go get started, what would you tell them? And there's no right or wrong answer.
I would say to set up an account with each of them and continue to use whichever one you find you have the easiest time dealing with. Because that's going to be your main, if you can't set up a server or get into your lab or make changes easily, you are going to bail on ever doing anything with your cloud environment from there on in. So whichever one you have the easiest time interacting with, setting stuff up with, that's the one that I would go with. Whichever one you feel the best about.
Which is kind of, I think, like how we feel about monitoring tools too. You should get demos and evals, and you're going to bond with one of them, and you should use the one you bond with.
I bond with this because it's active.
I do too. We all love SP who is active. Let's see. Next up, Augusto asks, is it? Oh, and the other thing I would say too is if you use one at work, you should probably consider using that just so you get good at it.
Yeah, love the one you're with.
Love the one you're with. Augusto says, is it a correct approach to implement 8 TempDB files in an instance that has 40 cores? Or would
So I think he's saying, should I go above 80? So it's plus 8. So I mean, the recommendation is to stop at 8. And then if you have TempDB contention and you've proved that adding more files resolves it, then go higher. But otherwise, stop at 8. At least that's what I've read.
Yeah. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, they said 1 file per core, and that's not a good idea today.
Well, it was the correct thing back in the day before we had more than 8 cores.
Yeah, that's true.
More than 8 cores.
It was an issue.
Yeah.
4 cores, 3 gigs of RAM. Like,
I remember when my database was reaching a gigabyte, it was having some performance issues.
You know, Thomas Grozer tells a really funny story about how when he first started with SQL Server on like 4 dot something.
421, get it right.
Yeah, I'm not gonna remember those. He used to like have to go into the office 45 minutes early to hit the power button. So like when people started showing up for work, the SQL Server would be up and running and ready to go. And now like 25 something years later, he had, like whenever he reboots a SQL Server, it takes just as long because there's like 4 terabytes of memory in it. It's going to check all this stuff, go through things. So it's like another 40. That was like 45 minutes, like all over again, just to like get the hardware up and running.
There goes 5 nines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's all the questions we've got for today. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us, and we will see you all at the next office hours. Adios, y'all.
Bye.